It's never too late to try something new. And I believe with all my heart that God has something that only you can do.
Mm.
Your skills, your passion, your personality, your life situation. And when you find that thing that only you can do, it is such a joy and you can bless so many people with it.
Hey, you, are you feeling stuck, desperate for a career change, or thinking of starting a business, but you're just not sure how to make your first move? I'm television producer turned career coach Shannon Russell, and this is the Second Act Success Career Podcast. This is where you will not only get the career advice you've been craving, but you'll get tips from career and business experts, along with inspiration from others who have made a career transition to find second act success. Let's get started. Welcome to the podcast. I am your host, career coach Shannon Russell. It is early 2024, which is the time of year when people start getting organized, trying to plan ahead for the year, declutter what's not needed. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of the same yourself. So, my guest today on the show fits perfectly for this time of year because she is a professional organizer. I have Angie Hyche here to talk about her career transition from a science, medical, and education background to starting ShipShape Solutions, a business where she helps others reorganize their lives so that they can go from chaos to order. Angie is also an author and a podcast host, so we have a lot to get to. Let me bring her in right now. This is Angie Hyche. All right, well, I'm here with Angie. Angie, welcome to Second Act Success. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Shannon.
Oh, I know we've been trying to get our schedules aligned so that we could talk for quite some time because you have so many acts and I can't wait to dive into them. Let's start with your first act, Angie. I know you have a bachelor's in biology and a master's in medical science.
Yes. And I always tell people my career path has been a very circuitous one for sure. So I was a nerdy science major. And my first job, I worked for Centers for Disease Control, CDC, in the leprosy lab doing lab research. Yeah, petri dishes
Interesting.
and test tubes. And then I kind of veered a little bit thinking that teaching was going to be my thing. So I went back to school and got certified to teach high school, taught high school science for not very long. It didn't take me very long to realize this was not the path for me. Although I love teaching, the discipline stuff just, oh my goodness, I was miserable. So then I was like, okay, now what? I had thought about physical therapy. That's what I thought I wanted to do, having a background in sports and all that. I found out about the PA profession, physician assistant. So I ended up kind of doing a lot of research into both. I worked in PT for a while and I applied to PT school and PA school in Atlanta and ended up deciding to be a PA. So I was a pediatric PA in an outpatient clinic in inner city Atlanta. That was very exciting. By this time, my husband and I had taken turns going to graduate school, and he went first. And so by the time I finished grad school and started working, we'd been married almost 7 years. And I was really wanting my primary act to be, if possible, staying home and raising my children. So
Yeah.
I didn't work for very long in medicine. And then we decided to start trying to have a family. And 2 weeks later, I was pregnant. And I was fortunate to be able to stay home with them for a long time, volunteered in the schools, in the clinic, in the library, and all different things. One of the volunteer jobs I did would end up leading to my current profession in a really interesting way. So I started doing some community theater acting just for fun. And this particular theater, the room where they stored their props, costumes, set pieces, all that was an absolute nightmare. And I'd always been the kind of person that liked things in order, and I had time to devote to it. So their part-time office person and I decided we had to fix this situation. So we took months getting rid of a lot, getting their stuff out of storage, going through all the closets. We had stuff spread out everywhere. We were just knee deep in the clutter. And I said, this is the most amazing thing ever. I want to do this every day. And when I researched it, I found out, oh, this is a field, like people do this for a living, organizing. So I found NAPO and I just thought, yeah, okay, they do, but that's going to mean starting my own business. And I just thought, oh, that's just way beyond, like, I can't even imagine doing that. So that kind of let that hold me back for a while. The idea of starting a business was still too intimidating. So I went back into education, but just as an elementary school assistant.
Okay.
And it was okay. I love kids. I'm good with kids. But I just couldn't get this whole organizing thing out of my head.
Mm.
So when my husband and I got to empty nest stage of life, and we had a bunch of time on trails, hiking trails, bicycling trails. And so we kept having the conversation again and again about starting an organizing business. And finally, it just got to the time in our lives where he said, I just really don't want you to regret not trying this. I know you're really nervous about the idea of starting a business, but hundreds of people who are less driven and intelligent as you do this all the time, and we're not relying on your money. And so if it doesn't work, you go back and teach or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I just finally said, okay, I'm going to go for it. So that was August 2016 that I launched ShipShape Solutions. And 7 years, almost to the day
Yeah.
later, I can say that it was the most exciting and terrifying thing I've ever done. In 7 years, even within organizing, I have morphed. I have had an employee. I have done client work. I've done writing and speaking and now podcasting, and I think I like reinventing myself.
It
Yeah.
sounds like it.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to hear that you tried different professions. So
Mhm.
that was jumping out of the box and trying new things. And you weren't afraid of doing that. But there was something about the entrepreneur piece that frightened
Yes.
you. What do you think it
Yes.
was about, ooh, a big business idea and how to launch that was holding you back?
You know, I was college educated, bachelor's and master's, so I knew I wasn't intelligent enough, but I just felt like there was so much in the whole world of business that I had no clue about.
Mm.
And it was probably mostly fear of failure, just fear of the unknown, the same kinds of things that stop us from many, many adventures. And it was also the timing just wasn't right for a while.
Mhm.
You know, we had to hit that point where I felt like I've got some time to play with as far as, not having the girls home that needed my help as much. I think that was the main thing. There's so much I don't know. This is so overwhelming. I don't know where to begin. That same process is exactly what I'm not good at doing myself necessarily, but I'm really good at helping people through that as an organizer. Okay, here's what we do. Let's take a look around. Let's look at your goals and your lifestyle and all that. All right, let's make a plan, step, step, step. And then when you start, you got the plan, you take the first step, it's like, okay, I got this. I got a plan. So I just needed to do that process for myself. And I had to get a bunch of help too. I didn't
Sure.
realize that there was something like Office of Small Business Development and Entrepreneurship. I could go in and say, hey, I want to start a business. I have no clue. And under your Wilcox would say, you got to have this insurance, this, who's your target market, da da da, all that stuff. It's doable. It's a finite set of things and you do them. I had to get the training through NAPO, the organizing group,
Oh, wow.
take the
Yeah.
classes, got a mentor. It's the same as any overwhelming task. You break it down and you get the help you need.
And you had the
So,
support of your husband, which
oh my
had to have
goodness.
been just everything for you.
So huge. And it is everything every day, everything from what am I going to write next month's article on to, do you have a good title for my book? Or this client is driving me crazy. I just need to vent. Yeah, I would definitely not have been able to do it without his support.
Mm. It's really hard. And I talk to people on both sides that have the support and then those who don't. I think it's emotionally, mentally valid to have that support. You need
Yeah.
that. You can do it without it, but it's so much more comforting to have that support system. And the fact that he finally said, all right, let's do it. You don't
Yeah.
need to worry about finances at this stage. We're going to make it happen. And that's incredible to just give you that little push because Angie, you are a learner. You went back for your master's. You've changed different careers at different times. So You're all about learning something new and succeeding at it.
I
And
really
once you
love that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got your mentor, you got the help that you needed, you learned these processes, and then what was it like to actually hit publish on your website and go out there and try to get your first clients?
It was so scary. I put everything out there and I was doing all the things. I was blogging, I was in the chamber, I was going to networking meeting. And I was thinking like, what is success going to look like? Am I going to be literally sitting like waiting for the phone to ring? What is it that I really want? Do I want to work full time? I wasn't even sure. And then to get that first client and walk up to the door. We'd had phone conversations, we got everything worked out. But then that first time you walk up, like, oh my gosh, I can't, what am I doing? What people are really going to pay me for this? I don't know anything, but I did. I was trained, I
Right,
had done
yes.
everything I needed to do. Some things came natural, but I also, all the training I needed with mentoring in the NAPO classes. So, oh my gosh, it was so terrifying, but it was also the giant adrenaline rush. It was the same kind of rush that I felt doing sports all my life, like right before the jump ball or the first serve or whatever, or in doing community theater, that whole like, lights up, like, oh my gosh, here we go.
Mhm.
So I think I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie that way.
Well, let's talk about the pivoting that goes along with launching a business. So now you have your first client, you're already a certified professional organizer at that point. What kind of pivots did you have to make? Did you kind of learn what you liked and what you wanted to do and what you did not?
Okay, so first thing is certified professional organizer. That can't come in the beginning. That requires 1,500 hours of documented paid organizing plus passing a difficult exam. So no one becomes a CPO from the get go. It takes years to get that. And I think only like less than 5% of organizers earn CPO status.
Wow. So
Um, so
congrats.
as a super nerd, I was all over that,
You're like, oh, I'm going to
Plus it's
reach that
more
goal.
plus it's more training.
Yes.
Yeah, so I start out slow with clients and then my business builds to the point where I think, okay, well, keeping track of everything, I'm having a little trouble. Maybe I need to get a CRM, customer relations management thing. So I get Salesforce and I beat my head against the wall. No, I don't need that. Maybe I need an employee. So I brought someone on. I had a great situation, someone who already had an organizing business but hated all the back end stuff. She said, I just want to go in and do the work. So I hired her and it was fantastic. We did some jobs together. She did jobs on her own. It was great. And then the writing came along from the beginning, like my blog that I was doing. I talked to the editor of local newspaper and turned that into a monthly article.
Oh,
I
wonderful.
started doing presentations from the beginning, which I never would have thought if I hadn't been doing theater. Like I already knew I liked to be on stage. And then a presentation became a book, which I never would have guessed. And then all these years of working with clients, I'm doing a lot of decluttering, pulling out things from people's homes to donate. And it's very physically demanding. And I
Mm.
have bad knees. I had my knee replaced. And it was like, okay, I can't do this kind of work forever. And I started getting more passionate about the writing and the speaking than I was about the client work.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So, yeah. But I knew that I'd still wanted to keep my hand in the business.
Hmm.
So 2017, that was really early on in my career, and my little hometown, Kingsport, Tennessee, had something. It was the 100th anniversary of the birth of our city, and so the Kingsport leaders said they wanted people to do something big, either personally or for their business, with the slogan of "What's your 100?"
Mm.
So I thought I was really new. I was trying to get the word out about my business. So I decided to volunteer 100 hours of organizing services to nonprofits.
Wow.
And that was just so fantastic that I said, I'm going to always give some time to nonprofits. So here I come to this point where I'm like, I can't be in the homes pulling out clutter. It's too hard on my knees. I can just keep working with nonprofits. That's how I've kept in the yucky closets and pulling
Yeah.
out this and that and, the hands on part of it.
Do you have employees that are going into the homes and
I
working
do
with you?
not. Yeah. I only
Oh,
ever had one employee And about the time I was ready to not work with clients, she was kind of shifting in her career. And so we officially announced we're not doing in home work. So now I try to do as much getting into groups to speak and then also writing, started the podcast,
Wow.
that kind of thing. And a lot of people still don't know that I'm not working with clients. So I still get calls and emails, and I've been able to connect with all the area organizers. So I keep a document with links and everything I know about them and say, here's some people that can help you, and let me know if you need something other than that. In the beginning, that was my competition. And
Yeah,
now they're my peers, and I can say, "Hey, I've got somebody that's a perfect match for you." So it's kind of fun to
that's
be able
really
to share with them. Yeah.
what an interesting way for the business to really turn and kind of
Yeah,
evolve. And I love that
absolutely.
you've got this blog that sounds like it's really successful. And let's talk about your book, your first book, I should say,
Yes.
Unholy Mess: What the Bible Says About Clutter.
That book started 2 ways. One was as I was working with clients, mostly with their physical stuff, and I would come home to my home that did not have clutter issues. My home is always in order, not perfectly, but
Mhm.
I was a little bit arrogant coming home to my clutter-free home. But I realized the more I learned about clutter and the more I thought about it, and especially examining it against the Bible, I realized clutter is not just the stuff, and the reasons for the clutter are really deep.
Mm.
I realized that I have just as much of an issue with clutter as my clients do. It's just that you can't see mine. And so they're harder to deal with and in some ways more damaging. I have real issues with schedule clutter. I pile things on my calendar. I pile tasks on my to-do list. I stay too busy. Therefore, it distracts me from what's important. I had major cell phone addiction issues that kept me from being present. I was talking a good game as far as being a devoted Christian, but if you looked at my schedule and what I think about, I was far from it. So, a lot of it was realizing the clutter issues within myself and seeing the damage it was doing to my clients and to me. So I first started with developing a presentation that I gave in a few Sunday school classes. I think I called it The Spiritual Implications of Clutter. And I was enjoying that, but there was so much more to say.
Mm.
So that's why I decided to write the book. And then because of the book and a mutual acquaintance, I got to know Liana George in Houston. She's a former organizer turned author. She approached me and said, our friend Shauna told me about your work, and I've had ideas for a long time about a book of devotionals based on organizing and simplicity. And I've not really heard many people talking about the connection between faith and organizing. So, would you be interested in potentially working on this together? First, I was like, yes, absolutely. And second, you haven't even read my book. It could suck, and you might be regretting asking me. But then we decided to write this book. We pitched it to some agents who were interested, but they said, we'd like to see you do more than this book. Have you ever thought about partnering for something else? So then the idea of a podcast came up. I'm a podcast junkie. I love podcasts. And so in January, we launched Uncluttered, Shaping Your Heart and Home for What Matters Most. And then our book will be published in June. So that has given me more content creation to do, which I love. It's the same message. God invented organizing from day one, from before day one, before time began. But so to be able to find her a kindred spirit on this message and then expand that message is a joy.
Mhm. You do the podcast together?
Yes. She's in
Okay.
Houston. I'm in Tennessee, but we figured out the logistics. We do video and audio.
Oh, how
But
fantastic to have a partner that you align with
oh,
so well.
it's a game changer.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
And
fantastic. First season was 11 episodes, and then the second one will be 10. We're every other Wednesday
okay.
releasing a new episode.
And your content is just all about helping people organize, or does it have that Christian background?
It's all scriptural, yeah. So we say in the beginning, welcome to Uncluttered, the podcast that talks about the connection between organizing and faith. our focus is not so much on how to be organized, but why it's important from a biblical standpoint to leave the chaos and the clutter in our lives behind.
Talk about a
So,
niche, right? Talk about
yes,
just getting to the people that want to hear your message.
yes,
I love it. And your book is titled Uncluttered as well?
yes. And it will publish in June 2024 with Scrivenings Press, which is a small Christian publishing company. My first book
Wow.
was self published. And Leanna already had the connection with Scrivenings Press. She's published a series of 3 fiction books about a professional organizer. They're really fun,
Oh,
really placed, purposely arranged, and perfectly matched. And so when Scrivenings Press decided they were going to launch into some nonfiction, we just jumped at the chance to pitch our book.
what was it like, I'm curious, to write a book with someone else, especially if it's not like your best friend from childhood and you're in different states? Like, what was that process like?
I think the most interesting part was trying to step back from what we've already done in our businesses, in our writing, and let's start from the standpoint of the connection between faith and clutter. Like, how do you even explain why you're connecting those 2 things? So we started talking about, all right, when did organizing begin? Who invented organizing? Like, the beginning of the organizing industry is one thing.
Right,
You
true.
know, you got NAPO and Marie Kondo and the home edit and this and that. But if you go back, Genesis 1, very beginning, God didn't just say, "Oh, okay, I think I'll do a fish here and a cloud here." It was just very so we started saying, okay, so we're gonna first talk about where organizing even comes in the beginning. Just a lot of thinking and talking through what makes sense. We know we've got all these ideas. We've got all individual topics that we think should be part of it, but what makes the most sense sequentially? We got Google Drive and we put all our stuff in there, and then we would look at each other's stuff. And I'm just going to have to say it was a little brutal in the beginning.
I bet.
And this is all a positive on Leanna, but, I never had anybody tell me before, "I think you could improve this by this." It was hard in
Mhm.
the beginning, and there were a lot of tears. All my insecurities came out, just like they did in starting a business.
Yeah.
All those insecurities just surfaced, and we had to have a strong enough relationship to be able to say, "Leanna, I'm having a hard time with this. I know you're just saying this because you want the writing to be the best and ultimately to glorify God the most, but this is hard."
Right.
I stuck in there, and I have grown as a writer during the time that I've worked with her, and it's just been a beautiful way that God has worked with us together.
And really such a change if you look at ShipShape Solutions from the get-go to now, it's really
Yeah.
evolved so much. Do you miss the organizing with your clients one-on-one, or do you just really enjoy the content creation now?
Because I'm still in there with nonprofits, I get some of that. I do still miss it in some ways, and I tell people all the time, if they contact me, people that read my articles, they'll send questions. I just geek out over it all. Still reach out to me. I'm not, like, giving hours of time away.
Right.
But between the nonprofit stuff where I'm still getting my hands in the work, and God just really blesses me with ideas a lot. And so now I feel like I finally have the time to devote to the ideas, because when I was working with clients, it's not that I was busy every day. I didn't have, just a hugely busy business, but it's like I didn't have the mental space to
Yeah.
be able to think of the ideas and actually sit and write them. That part is so fun.
I'm curious, over the pandemic, did you do programs virtually and, to be able to reach people outside of Tennessee?
So pandemic for me was number 1, it was getting certified. I
Okay.
had a lot of time to study for that exam. Built an accountability group of other people getting ready to study, and now we have continued on as just a friendship and business accountability group.
Oh,
I did a lot of that. I did some virtual work with clients that I knew really well using FaceTime or whatever. They'd show me a space, try this, try that. So, Edits of Unholy Mess, it published December 2020.
oh,
So some of that correlated with pandemic timing, but honestly, I think it was helpful for me to really drill down on my own priorities. All of us, I think, learned so much about ourselves during the pandemic, especially with me and schedule clutter, time with my family, my parents, all our parents are here local.
Mm.
I think I was able to see more clearly what really mattered. And it went from like, well, I probably should call my mom or my in-laws to, boy, I miss my mom.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that time with them. That's still a challenge for me giving up my time, but the pandemic was really helpful for that.
Yeah, and you got to really focus probably on the business too and what direction you really wanted it to
Yes.
go to see your
Yeah.
book published. And I admire you with what you did with your business because you might be in one space now with the podcast and with the second book coming out and speaking, but you still have your hand in whatever you want it to be, whether it's going back to work one on one with clients or developing virtual programs. You really have built out lots of different limbs on the trees, if you will,
Yeah.
to be able to pivot the business in whatever direction you want. And that's really, really inspirational, I think, to see that you're sitting in it and where you want it right now. And it could
Yeah.
be in a different place 2 years from now.
Right. Just because I'm not seeing clients now doesn't mean that I won't. There's lots of organizing work that I could do that is not very physical. I'm really passionate about photo organizing.
Well,
I've
that's
taken a lot of the free classes that the photo managers, which is a group that does all photo organizing, some of them, that's all they do. So I've been developing and teaching workshops for that. And that kind of work wouldn't be physical. So I could
right.
step into it's a lot of praying for where God wants me. And honestly, a lot of it is just God's financial blessings on the fact that we haven't needed my money for running the family. My husband's business, his job takes care of that, and his support and flexibility and being able to say, you want to try this. And I mean, since the beginning 2023, I've made $0 off client work, but that was intentional.
Right.
I get paid for some presentations, but not very many. I'm
Mhm.
trying to transition that, but it's hard once you've given something away for 7 years.
True.
And it
True.
also this went from a job I knew I would love to this is my ministry.
Hmm. Sounds like
Um,
it.
oh, and faithful organizers. This I haven't said anything about. Early on in my business, I went to a NAPO conference. That's National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. So I went to conference and saw a sign for faithful organizers, a group of Christian professional organizers. And I said, I didn't even know there was such a thing. And they were going to have a devotional. So I showed up with the organizers. I felt like, oh, I'm with my people. But then with Christian organizers, like, now I'm really with my people. And I think I had just not ever thought that deeply about my job could be a mission that, you don't have to have like my work life, my home life, my churchy life. But if you're doing it right, everything is centered on serving God.
Yeah.
So that was a whole nother part of just opening my eyes to how I could serve God with my job.
Hmm.
So they are a huge part of that. God used a whole lot of different people and groups and circumstances to lead me here.
And reassuring you with all these different signs that you made the right decision and that you're in the right spot for you. What you just said made me think about you serving others when you were teaching and serving others when you were in medicine, but now you're serving others in different ways and you're really
Right.
giving back and you just seem like you're really found your spot.
Yeah, and the fun thing about reinventing yourself all your life that I know that I'll probably retire pretty soon. My husband and I are getting close to that stage, but I also know that like, I want to try this, you know, I'll get the tools and I'll shift. And
Yep.
I realize that not everyone has the flexibility financially to be able to just say, well, let me try this. It doesn't matter if I make money. I mean, some people just, they can't do that.
Mhm.
So every time I talk about how blessed I am, that's a big part of it that I haven't had the pressure of making money. So I can try this, try that, and see. Most people don't have that
True.
freedom. I say all that knowing I've been so blessed by God to be in the situation I am financially, relationship wise, and to be able to explore
Yeah.
and shift.
That's very true. And I think other people who want to try, I always encourage you can try what it is you want to do in whatever little amount of free time you do
Yes.
have. But yes, you're absolutely right. You're definitely blessed and you're in a great spot. And maybe that's God's doing as well, of
Mm.
just giving you that opportunity and that comfort. And I love that you're talking about retirement because you know what? You can still have your podcast all through retirement, right? You can be
Absolutely.
wherever you want on the globe and do it. And you're writing as well. So you do not
Yeah.
need to close anything down, especially
Yeah.
if it brings you joy.
Right. I plan to keep speaking. I don't know for sure on the podcast. We know we'll continue it all the way till our book publishes and probably for a little bit after. Is that a long term thing? I don't know. I think so, but I'm not sure. The
Yeah.
writing, I've already got two other things that I want to write besides the ones already in progress. I can't imagine not writing in some way.
Yeah.
I'm going to always want to find groups that could benefit by what I have to share. I have a presentation that same title as my book, and I like to start that by doing kind of using my theater background to do a little storytelling, getting character for three different people with the three main kinds of clutter, physical, schedule, and attention, and what that looks like. And then sharing inspiration and tips. I have a presentation for moms, a time management thing. I do a presentation where people break into groups and play organizer, and those are all just fun. Just fun.
Yeah. I love it. All right, it's time for our 5 fast cues of the week. Here we go. Name one thing that these different chapters in your life have taught you.
Oh, it's never too late to try something new, and I believe with all my heart that God has something that only you can do.
Mm,
Your skills, your passion, your personality, your life situation, and when you find that thing that only you can do, it is such a joy, and you can bless so many people with it.
mhm. Would you recommend taking a leap into a big life change to your best friend?
Yes, absolutely. But I would say do your homework, make your plans, but absolutely I recommend the leap if you've done all your prep work and get your support system.
Be organized about it.
Yes.
You-
Yes. Mm.
so, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is about to start their second act?
I would say get the training that you need, whether that's mentoring, whether that's formal coursework, because number one, you're going to do your best work if you got all the equipping that you need. And it increases your confidence level to be able to say, yeah, I've taken the basic NAPO classes. Yes, I've had some mentorship because you're going to feel that imposter syndrome. You will. And you're like, nope, nope, I'm equipped. I've got what I need. So that's my advice.
I 1000% agree. I always say do it for nothing else but your confidence as you move forward.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes.
So, what does the next act look like for you? You alluded to a couple different things, but what do you think if you had to say, my third act is going to be what?
So all the writing I've done so far has been nonfiction, but I'm anxious to kind of dip my toes into fiction. I'm doing an online playwriting class because I've been doing community theater for over 20 years. And actually, the organizing started because of that. I want to
Right.
write a play featuring a professional organizer and get it on some stages locally and see what happens with it. And then also, my husband and I, because we spend a lot of time on trails, we're trying to get to every one of the 63 national parks. We're at 46. And we just decided in the last few months, we need to write a book about that. It might be called something like Empty Nest Bucket List, a National Park Adventures for Couples, something like that. So
I
that's on the
love that.
horizon.
Ooh, I can see a lot of people wanting that. That's really, really cool. Good for you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Where can my audience connect with you and just learn about everything that you're doing and just follow along, whether it's with your books or your podcast or your speaking?
The best place to find information about me and ShipShape is on my website, which is shipshape.solutions. Both me and ShipShape Solutions and Uncluttered are all on all the places, mainly Facebook and Instagram. And the Uncluttered website, uncluttered.faith, you can find all the episodes. We also have a newsletter with some free decluttering signs. My newsletter for my business has my top 10 organizing products, top 10 organizing tips, and the 10 commandments of organizing. So those are places to reach out. I'd love to connect.
I'm going to link to everything in the show notes. Thank you so much, Angie. This was a really fascinating conversation. I just love everything that you've done.
Oh,
So many
thank
different
you.
acts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I love your podcast. This second act thing is, I think it's so rare for someone to know what they want to do, study it, do it, love it, and stay in it. It is much more realistic to think that we will need to pivot. Pivot, a good pivot is not just for basketball. As a
Yes.
former jock, being able to pivot and pivot well can just really add so much value to your life. So I appreciate your work so
Thank you
much.
so much. Yeah, and I think that it's just the way of the world now. And you and I are able to teach our children that they don't have to pick one thing to do until
Yes.
retirement. They can do it all. So
Yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Angie.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you found some gems of inspiration and some takeaways to help you on your path to second act success. To view show notes from this episode, visit secondactsuccess.co. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Reviews only take a few moments and they really do mean so much. Thank you again for listening. I'm Shannon Russell, and this is Second Act Success.